Hello, adventurers. My name's Tyler.
And I'm Richard.
On today's episode, we'll be going over some of the changes in the newly released Unearthed Arcana, Player's Handbook 6. Welcome to True Strike.
Howdy, folks, and welcome back to the show. And that was quite a mouthful of an introduction. The Unearthed Arcana Player's Handbook Playtest 6.
They keep getting longer.
It just rolls off the tongue.
I mean, there's no way it could have been something simpler like 1D&D. That's too complicated. Let's get away from that.
No, we need to get away from that.
For reasons we won't talk about.
No. No, we wanna make something that just takes you half an hour just to read the heading for. So this was a big surprise. Wasn't expecting this UA to drop when it did. I was like trying to think of what we were gonna do for the episodes coming up, and we had some ideas for some stuff that we were going to talk about, including a Strahd campaign update, and then all of a sudden we're like, bam, with a UA that's massive in your face.
Yeah, last UA, they were like, yeah, this is the biggest one we've ever done. And I was like, oh man, this is pretty big. This is going to take us a while to, chew through it, mull it over, everything. Thank goodness this is the biggest one they'll ever be. And then this one comes out, and it's like 40% longer.
Yeah, it was big. So to say the least, we are not going to cover everything. We're going to be cutting out Monk out of this.
Yes, Monk we actually really want to dive into because it hasn't been touched in these playtests so far. And we're going to be bringing back Garrett Phillips for that one, actually.
Yay!
Woo! And we had to, we were going to try getting that in today, but it didn't work for scheduling reasons. So we're going to have him back soon. So I think the next episode after this one, we are going to touch on that Curse of Strahd home game update. But right after that, we're going to be diving into Monk together with Garrett on the podcast again. But for today, we wanted to at least, give a nice little a basting of sorts of all of the other classes and stuff in the game for this update. Not everything. We're not going to be able to go in depth to all of the classes on this episode for sure, but we at least want to touch some of the key things that we noticed.
Yeah, so this is all, like he said, all stuff that has been covered in most of the previous ones. So there's a lot of changes to some of these classes. Some of them big changes, some of them little changes, but these are all already things that kind of have already been touched on. So that's why we felt confident in breaking Monk off from this and doing its own, power episode, since there's a lot of stuff in that, and then just using this to touch on this stuff. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and kick right into this.
Absolutely. Right off the jump, we wanted to touch on a couple things just before we even dive into the classes specifically. Mostly that they decided to pull the trigger, at least in this test, and make some of these spells and stuff exclusive to different classes. So Hunter's Mark, for example, is exclusive to the Ranger class, which I have no issues with.
Yeah, I mean, that tracks. It should be anyway.
Right. Same with Hex to the Warlocks. Also, cool. No big deal here. Hex, Eldritch Blast, that's part of the flavor. That's how Warlocks work. It's your bread and butter.
Yeah. The next thing is Find Steed and Smites are now mostly Paladin exclusive, which is huge because when we talked about these in the past, a point was made that it was getting to the point where clerics were becoming better paladins than paladins.
And you absolutely could. You could have more damage, powerful damaging smites on your turn as a cleric instead of a paladin, which I could see, sure, that kind of makes sense as a cleric. But you're pulling away the identity of the paladin by doing that.
Yeah. So this is fixing that and making paladins again.
Absolutely.
We've got Conjure Volley and Conjure Barrage are now Ranger exclusives.
Also, cool. Makes sense.
Yep.
And Vicious Mockery being Bard exclusive,
which is super cool. Yeah,
none of these I have an issue with.
No, this is all fine. I like this.
Yeah, these are the spells that I associate with these classes anyway. I'm glad, really glad Find Steed actually, because Smite spells, okay, sure, Paladin, yeah. Find Steed, wonderful, because you're the knight in shining armor riding in on the horse into battle. It's thank you for giving us the horse.
Yeah, no, that's good. And we'll get more into Fine Steed later in the show, because there's actually more to say about that. So before we go to bards, I just wanted to touch on a new spell, elementalism. We have that now in the list, which is a brand new spell, so not just a revision to another one. And elementalism is basically just like taking some of the other small cantrips like mold earth, shape water, and stuff like that, and combining them all into one spell. So now we have elementalism, where you can cast it, and then you can choose to beckon air, beckon earth, beckon fire, beckon water, or sculpt elements. And it does the little things like the cantrip, like mold earth used to do. But now it's like a catch-all, so you don't have to take all these individual elemental cantrips when you have one that just can be a catch-all that lets you do all those weird little tiny things that aren't like hugely game-breaking. So like beckon air is just allowing you to like, ripple cloth or make dust go up in the air, move some leaves on the ground. We're not talking about like game-breaking things here.
No.
You're not turning into an airbender, but you can do the little things. Same thing with, beckon earth, you're, moving dust or sand around or something like that. So just a cool little spell.
Instead of having to take different cantrips, maybe I want a little flavor here, maybe I want a little utility here. It's just one that actually seems pretty useful.
Yeah, so I like that. But yeah, other than that, we'll just jump into the classes now. So we've got bards.
Yes, right off the jump there, Bardic Inspiration was reverted back to the 2014 Player Handbook rendition of it, with one huge exception. It can be held when you give it to someone. They can hold it for an hour now.
Yeah.
Which is wonderful. That's great. You don't have to be like, all right, you take this, you use it or lose it. But it can be used on response to any kind of failure of a D20 test, which is also neat. You're like, I failed an attack roll. I failed a saving throw. Here you go. Add this Bardic Inspiration to it, and you hold it for an hour. So you can give it out, before fights, going into a dungeon. You can, more preparatory instead of always in the middle of combat.
Yeah. One thing that I don't like is that they removed the ability for Bardic Inspiration to heal that was in the previous one, which I can understand why they did it, but it is a little sad because I really liked that. That was really cool.
There's always time for it to come back.
Yeah. Bards now get to choose whether or not to use Arcane Divine or Primal Spell lists.
This is one of my favorite parts of this update, actually, because you're the, jack of all trades. Maybe you grew up with wolves. You've got a pan flute and you grew up with the wolves. Maybe you didn't take to the bow, but you did, find yourself attuned to primal magic, or you did grow up at a church and maybe you've got some of this divine magic, though you wouldn't consider yourself a holy man. I just like it. You choose how you want to do it.
Font of Inspiration is now back to level 5, so you regain all your expended uses of Bardic Inspiration when you finish a short rest. You can also now expend your spell slots for more Bardic Inspiration.
Counter charms here. It also works as a reaction now. So this isn't something you're going to have to, start playing and keep going. If you want to actually, use it, you could just pop it as a reaction, which is great. Actually, probably see a little more use out of this now. Now, big thing here, your 20th level ability as a bard, Words of Creation. With this, you can use Power Word Heal or Power Word Kill, which, by the way, are always prepared now. And you can target a second creature so long as it's no farther than 10 feet away from the original target, which is freaking huge. But also, big bonus up to Power Word Kill, it deals damage even if the target has over 100 hit points.
Yeah, it does 12d12.
Which, woo!
Yeah, of psychic damage.
That's awesome. And especially now you're able to hit 2 targets with that. And now, what if one's under 100 hit points, dead, and then if the other one's not, still hurts them quite a lot.
No, it's still really good.
So that's sweet.
Vicious Mockery is now a 1d6 and scales. So in addition to it becoming this exclusive spell now to bards, they made it better and made it scale now. So it's an even better spell.
Yeah. Now, we're not going to be able to dive into the subclasses today. However, I do want to point out really quick that the subclasses in this UA, which I highly recommend you going up, it's like 72 pages, something like that. Go on dndbeyond.com and, go through the UA playtest, find this newest one, the playtest 6, and give everything a look through. All of the subclasses are either here or they point you to Tasha's, stuff like that. But the ones we've got listed here are the College of Dance, College of Glamour, College of Lore, and the College of Valor. College of Valor. Now, College of Dance, I really do wish we had time to jump into, because that is a new subclass.
Yes, and we will probably have to go into that one in more depth in the future, because it's a really cool addition to the whole idea of building your bard.
Right. I think we'll probably end up doing an episode that just focuses on, any of the new subclasses or anything like that brought in this playtest. But that's later down the road.
Yeah.
Clerics.
So they haven't changed much from the first playlist. Holy Order is now at level 1, and preparing spells is back to the old 2014 rule set.
Which, you're going to see that across the board for a lot of this stuff. They took a lot of the changes that they've made over the last playtest, and they've popped some of them back to the 2014 version, and then they've adjusted again, with all this other stuff. Now, like Channel Divinity, for example, it is based on your cleric level, and your Smite Undead is based on your Wisdom modifier instead of proficiency bonus.
Yeah.
So, slight change there.
Yep. Blessed Strikes now allows you to pick between your potent spellcasting or divine strike instead of just getting defaulted one based on your subclass.
Right. You actually get the choice as a player.
Yeah, you get a choice now, which is pretty cool.
Wonderful. Point to note out here, they actually mentioned that if you are multi-classing and you have more than one class with a Channel Divinity feature, a class's use of that feature can be expended only on that class's Channel Divinity options, so that you're not trying to use, double of your Cleric's Channel Divinity and, double dipping even though you've multi-classed into another, class with a Channel Divinity.
Yeah. We now get Commune at 9th level, which just gives you the Commune spell. So you just always have it prepared now, so you can always talk to Daddy.
Yep, always get your yes or no's.
Yeah.
A trustworthy yes or no, unlike, what is it, the other one, the wheel and spoke. And
oh, yeah, I know. The one where you don't know if I can trust you.
Maybe it's a lie.
It's always a lie.
Now, at level 10, you get Divine Intervention. You just have it prepared, and once at this level, I say that level, we'll get to that in a second. Yeah, once per long rest, as your magic action, you can use a divine spell of 5th level or lower.
That doesn't require a reaction.
Right.
Yeah.
No material components. So you could raise dead.
Yeah.
And you're not needing the components, which makes you insane.
Yeah, I think in the video they refer to it as ruining the diamond economy.
Yeah. Now, like I said, speaking of this level, at 20th level, this spell is basically cleric version of Wish.
Yeah, you can choose, instead of doing that 5th level or lower divine, you can just choose to cast Wish.
Yep.
Which is super cool.
Yeah, and you get to flavor it with your, deity or god, stepping in and making your thingy happen, but neat.
But yeah, it's really cool. We talked about Wish in the favorite spells and how neat it can be, and how we never chose it to be one of our favorite spells,
right?
Just because it is the de facto probably best spell in the game.
It's great.
Yeah,
but also use with caution.
Yes, exactly. Use with caution. But it is really cool. This whole divine intervention and Wish thing just makes it the whole flavor of talking to your divine entity more like engrossing, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Subclasses for cleric here, you've got your life domain, your light domain, your trickery domain, and your war domain. Now over to druid. Top level, we're looking at channeled nature has been removed in favor of giving wild shapes at level 2. Which, okay.
Yeah, so just a change back, but not a huge one.
Your templates for your wild shapes have also been dropped. Now you're back to beast stat blocks again.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about this one. I kind of like the templates.
So did I.
I think it took away a little bit of the flavor, which I understand, which is why they went back. And now we're back to the beast stat blocks, which they addressed, which we're going to talk a little bit about that.
This feels like what's interesting is I personally like both versions. Just tell me what it is. Actually, I guess the way I want to put it is I like both versions better than what it is right now. And we'll get to what this new version is.
Yes, yeah. Both versions are definitely better than what we have right now. But I kind of liked the idea of having a generic stat block so that it was easier to just flavor your druid transformations as to be what you want them to be. I think that the way we talked about it with Garrett, which was the generic stat blocks with a little bit of extra flavor thrown in, would have been the way to go here. And maybe they will. I mean, they could go back at this point, but it doesn't look like it. Looks like we're back to the beast stat blocks with the other changes that we're going to talk about in a second. But it is definitely a change. We'll just have to see how it shakes out.
Yep. Now you're at level 1. You get your druidic order. It lets you pick between magician, which gives you an extra primal cantrip and the ability to add wisdom to nature checks, which is freaking awesome. Or you could pick warden if you want to be a little beefier, and take the ability to have medium armor and a martial weapon proficiency. Also, wild companion looks like you get to cast find familiar for free once per long rest.
Yeah,
so you'll have a little animal buddy every day now.
Yep,
if you so wish.
Wild Resurgence is really cool. So this allows you to convert wild shapes into spell slots and spell slots into wild shapes.
Yeah.
So this is probably one of my favorite things just because I like the idea of being able to switch back and forth because it just allows you to have a little bit more flexibility on how you're going to use your spells and your wild shapes.
Yeah. I mean, that ties into Druidic Order, going Magician or the Warden and really deciding, do I want to be more focused on, turn into animals, or do I want to focus on melee fighting, or do I want to focus on spells? Or this is another thing that lets you kind of like lean into that and be the druid you want to be. Elemental Fury. Choose between adding wisdom modifier to cantrip damage or elemental damage to melee wildship attacks. That's neat.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I like the idea of adding different elemental damage to wild shapes for sure.
Yeah, no, that's definitely very helpful.
I just like the idea of running at you as a dire wolf or a badger with fire claws. Just rah! Now, the big one, the wild shape. Instead of the templates and stuff like we mentioned earlier, you're going to get your wild shapes more like how sorcerers learn spells. So you're going to start with 3 of these, which will cap out at 5. And it's kind of like flipping through a spell book. You have your listed, chosen wild shapes. And I like this in the sense that you know what your options are.
Your DM knows what your options are.
DM knows what your options are.
Yeah.
This helps for like planning encounters. You're not flipping through books or the D&D Beyond trying to find a stat
block that you need.
And at the end of the day, how many animals or wild shapes do you actually use or transform outside of your favorites?
Yeah, I think that's kind of like one of the ways of looking at it.
Yeah. And I mean, like, if it's me, I'm gonna choose my scout, my damage dealer, and maybe something sneaky.
Yeah.
Like, I'm thinking, like, if I get 3, maybe I've got a spider, maybe I've got a cat, and maybe I've got a bear. Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean?
I mean, you're also not tied into these, so you can switch out these beast stat blocks. They can replace one from a known form on a long rest. So it's not like you have to put, like, all your eggs in this one basket.
Yeah.
Like, you're not choosing these to be your forever beast forms. So it's not like it's taking away options from you. It's just giving you or making you choose options for that specific day, essentially.
Right. And I know, we're not going to touch too much on subclasses, but, speaking of the wild shapes, one of the features of the Circle of the Land, or Circle of the Sea even, like, you can get traits and like the ability to fly, ability to swim, and stuff like that, and apply that to all of your wild shapes.
Yeah, all of your
certain
wild
points,
shapes. That was
which
really
is
cool.
Great.
Yeah. A flying bear.
Yeah, you're a flying bear or like an underwater like swimming cat.
Yeah.
Like that's awesome.
Yeah, and I know we're not touching too much onto these, but Moon Druid did have some pretty significant changes too. So that one kind of bears mentioning because of the fact that Moon Druids, Moon Druids are a very popular thing, and there are some pretty major changes to Moon Druids in particular. You now get to choose your current AC if it's higher instead of your shape's AC.
That's a big one. In
That's
the last
huge.
test with the Druids, the AC really took a hit on some of these transformations.
Yeah, and now you also are getting temporary hit points when you wild shape too, which is really cool. So you're getting to choose your higher AC if you've got it. You're getting temporary hit points. You can now deal radiant damage with your attacks, and you even start to get to teleport as a bonus action, which is really, really cool. And actually, it even gets better when you get to higher levels. Instead of just teleporting yourself, you can take your friend with you.
Super neat.
Yeah. So it's Moon Druids. They got a lot of changes, and I think it's it's going to be one of those way more used subclasses now.
I want to play one so bad.
Yeah, I really like the last Druid that I made. I didn't do a Moon Druid. Had Moon Druids been like this, I don't know. I probably would have been a Moon Druid.
Which is interesting, because if you look at the current 2014 version of a Moon Druid, everyone plays a Moon Druid because they're so powerful. They're the tanks. They're amazing at everything. And yet, now leaning heavier into the Moon flavor, you're interested.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing, is I'm not interested in the power character. I'm interested in the cool flavory stuff.
Right.
So, yeah.
Now, the characters I'm interested in, of course, the Paladins.
I've never played a Paladin, so it's like, it's not my
They're
thing.
the best, which is why you won't do it. You're
Not my
afraid of
thing.
you don't like the power.
Yeah,
It's fine.
I'm not playing the min-maxer.
Right. That's why you always play the Artificer.
Or the monk for now.
Ooh. Now, Smite, big change here. It is based on Smite spells instead of just an inherent ability of the Paladin.
I believe you.
Looks like you can cast one of them without expending a spell slot.
Yeah.
I don't care. Maybe this is a big deal and I'm overlooking it.
Yeah, I'm sure Garrett has a lot more to say on it. But I know.
I believe Crawford mentioned like, oh, they were always spells. It's just, it wasn't listed as a spell because the Paladin was the one that had it. And I'm like, yeah, cool. So you're telling me nothing's changed?
Yeah, nothing has changed. It's nomenclature.
I guess now it can be counterspelled,
Sure.
which I guess it couldn't have been before because it was just part of the attack.
Yeah, because it was just part of the attack that you were doing. So I guess now there are more interactions with them.
So now it's just
because
worse.
it's a spell. Yeah, I guess there's probably going to be a lot more to this.
But certain
than
smites,
surface level.
Certain smites were spells. Like if I was preparing a thunderous smite, that was a spell I had to cast and concentrate on before I landed the attack. It was just the divine smite that was just part of the action. I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something, but big one, huge, giant, probably the biggest thing in the whole UA. Lay on hands is a bonus action now.
That seems crazy.
Crazy good.
That seems crazy. I don't know if they're going to keep that.
What? They gotta keep it.
Do they?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, it's...
What? A healing word is a bonus action.
Yeah, it's not lay on hands, though.
Lay on hands is just 5 points at level 1.
At level 1.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
It's contact.
Lay on hands scales pretty well. Healing word, not so much.
But you gotta touch.
Yeah, but still.
I do like...
It's going to make for some pretty epic moments where you
gonna-
just run up and slice somebody in the chest and then like reach down and just tippy-tap your ally and be all like, bing!
Oh, you're one of them selfless
There you
paladins. I like the idea that you run up into a battle, you slash somebody, and then you grab yourself and
You're not supposed
Cap
to
up.
use lay on hands on yourself.
cap up 40 points in their face.
When do you
That's a
ever hear
bonus
somebody
action.
like say lay on hands on me? You don't
Yeah.
lay your hands
I lay
on
my
yourself.
hand on me.
You lay your hands on your friends. It's not for
Only
you.
with permission.
It's not for you.
It's my hands. I can do what I want. and I'm gonna lay him wherever I
I'm
like.
gonna catch these hands as a bonus action.
That's monk. We're
That's
getting
what
to
we're
that
gonna
later.
call it. Okay, yeah, sorry.
Now, weapon mastery. The paladin will get 2 types that they're proficient with, and they can change that on a long rest.
Yep. Everybody's getting weapon mastery.
Mm-hmm. Abjuring abjure foes. It now has nothing to on a successful save. Wah, wah. Basically, it gives the DM a chance to be fine. They actually got to pass the save, and then it does nothing. Yeah, cool.
Yep. Aura protection returned to level 6, and it now very specifically says it's inactive if you're incapacitated.
Whoa!
Yeah, so
I want my auras to work when I'm unconscious.
Nope, doesn't make any sense.
I don't know. If my body is laying there on the floor and you see me, you're like, I'm still inspired.
I still feel something.
I still feel a little something.
I still feel something.
So, away from this chat for a second. At our home games, we do the thing where the DM rolls death saving throws behind the curtain, so to speak. And I like the idea currently where the paladin is there and the rest of the team is getting buffed up. They've got a bonus to their saving throws, and the paladin's unconscious. And they're like, all right, cool. And then the next saving throw comes, and they're like, a +3. And I'm like, no. And they're like, oh. Because he did.
Because he did that.
Radiant strikes. It works with unarmed strikes. Sweet.
Yep. Melee weapons and unarmed strikes.
Pop, pop, pop. Pop, pop. Oh, wait, monk.
That's back to monk again.
Divine Smite is now a spell instead of a class feature. We mentioned that.
Yep,
Why
we
did I
talked about
talk
that already.
Again? Cut that. I feel like... Now, specifically with the smites, working with the unarmed strikes, it does not work for ranged attacks. I repeat, you cannot smite on ranged attacks currently anymore. I'm fine with this.
Yeah, we already talked about that when we talked about this before, in that they were definitely going to remove that.
Now, on the thing that I think might be the biggest deal in this entire UA.
Oh, yeah, this is pretty big. And I don't like paladins, and even I can acknowledge that this is pretty big.
The Fine Steed, which you get, and Paladin exclusive and everything else, it is now an action to do this instead of 10 minutes.
Yeah, this is huge, because 10 minutes is a long time. Like, you had to basically prep your steed for battle long before battle.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, because you can't just be all like, oh, I see them coming over the hill. I need you to distract him for 10 minutes.
Yeah. Whenever Rudy had to summon Kelly, which was the name of my beautiful steed, I had to sit cross-legged in the snow.
Crisscross applesauce.
While everyone else was like waiting to go and like, come on, Rudy. And I'm just like, here, horsey, 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 horsey. Here, horsey, 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 horsey. For 10 minutes. Every time. That was part of the spell. And now I'm just like, to me, Kelly! And 6 seconds later, he shows up.
Yeah, this is like this. I immediately get like these super epic visuals of like you're like you see the enemy coming and then you just go running across the field, right, to like charge them head on, and there's this nice slanted rock, and then you run up the rock and you jump off the rock, and as you're in the air, find steed, and then you land on him and then just charge into battle, and everybody's like, yeah, this is the wrong fight. We need to go the other direction. That dude just summoned a steed underneath him as he was coming at us.
It's awesome.
That's what I see when I think of find steed now.
I like it.
Yeah, so that's huge, and I think it's not overpowered.
No,
I don't think so at all. I think this is kind of something that that they needed, and I like that it's now a paladin thing. Like Fine Steed is back to being the paladin thing.
I mean, I don't even think that it is. It's not something that we needed per se, but
yeah, needed is the wrong way of putting it.
You don't have to explain to the team why you need 10 minutes.
Yeah, why you need
to get
10
your
minutes
horse
to get your horse. Yeah.
You just do it, and as long as it's not busted, in a combat sense or something, then if no one's being hurt, this just speeds things up.
Yeah, but I remember your steed being in a lot of combats, and it really didn't bust combat.
No, but he was really fun.
Well, I remember when you attacked me, and I had to fight your horse. It was slightly inconvenient that I had to take down your horse. But I mean,
That was the only mistake you ever made that whole game.
Yeah, that was
Attacking my horse.
Yeah, so I do. It was interesting. It did change the tide of battle a little bit, having to focus on somebody on a horse instead of just somebody on the ground. But yeah, it wasn't my fault that I was attacking you anyway. It was
I
the
like to
axe's
think
fault.
it was your fault.
It was
taking
the
the
axe's
axe.
fault. Yeah. Curse weapons, folks. Don't just equip anything you find laying around. Attunement can be a bad thing sometimes.
But all the signs of this being a clearly cursed weapon were
They
there.
were not there.
And you're like literally, I think everyone else in game was like, that's definitely cursed. And you're like, psh.
Yeah, everybody was all like, cool, just leave it there. We don't need it. And I'm like, but maybe?
But it's a free axe.
But it's free.
Like, you're a rogue with psychic knives. Why would you need this? And you're like, because it's free.
Yeah, and the DM's like, do you want to attune it? Wink, wink. You can do that right now if you want to.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I want to attune this. Instant message. Instantly. It's cursed. Oh, great.
But it leads to such good moments.
Sorry about the tangent about Feinstein there. That had nothing to do with it.
Oh, yeah, we didn't even talk anything bad about Carl this episode yet.
Yeah, no.
Carl sucks.
Yeah.
Now, the subclasses for the Paladin in this UA are the Oath of Devotion, the Oath of Glory, the Oath of the Ancients, and the Oath of Vengeance!
Vengeance.
Which is the best oath to have ever existed. Now, speaking of Carl's, the Ranger. I guess we could skip straight to the Rogue. No one gives a crap about the Ranger. Okay, fine. The way Rich is looking at me right now, like, please, Tyler, the Rangers aren't bad anymore.
Everybody loves Rangers.
Yeah, Rangers are good now. I get it. Okay, but they weren't always good. They weren't good when Carl's was a Ranger, so... Ha!
I don't know. He did really well. He rolled a lot of 20s.
Yeah, that's 'cause just that guy.
I'm just saying.
That work colleague who I refuse to say the name of.
Favored enemy no longer removes concentration from Hunter's Mark, but does give free uses now. Yay. We're getting weapon mastery because everybody gets weapon mastery. That's what I'm picking up from
everyone
this,
that uses weapons.
This new UA is weapon mastery for you, and you get a weapon mastery. And look under your seat. Weapon
What's
mastery.
that? Oh, weapon mastery. Which is great. It's the same here for the Paladin and Monk.
I kid, but it is good. But they do
weapon mastery is awesome.
Yeah, no, it's great.
Yeah, as long as you're not just a straight up like arcane caster.
Yeah,
you're.
It is really
yeah,
it's really good. I just kind of assumed that it wasn't going to be an everybody who can pick up a sword kind of a deal. But you know, whatever.
Like you said, pick
We're
up
cool.
a sword.
Well, cool.
Rangers aren't always going to be using a bow, and even if you are, there's the weapon mastery for that. But if you are the ranger that's out there dual wielding swords and stuff, guess what? Weapon mastery.
Yeah. Sorry, I'll stop going on tangents now.
No, that's why they're here. Deft Explorer at level 1, you're getting expertise. Cool. Neat. Love it. Expertise is great. Everybody needs expertise. It also gives you a terrain choice, and you gain more terrains and additional expertise at level 9.
Yeah, so you just get more expertise and more terrains, which is Ranger's whole gig.
Yes. And to anyone here who doesn't know what expertise is, if you're looking at your abilities or your skills and you're choosing proficiency in something, expertise is basically just double proficiency in something. So if you're really, really good at acrobatics, you can have expertise in acrobatics. Or really, really good at, picking locks or whatever. Expertise is wonderful. And it scales as your proficiency bonus goes up later in game. At 9th level, you're getting Conjure Barrage, and it is always prepared.
Yep. We've got Nature's Veil now no longer uses spell slots. That's the one that makes you invisible. It's now got a number of uses based on your wisdom modifier, which is really cool. I like when they do that with these abilities and takes them away from using up your precious spell slots.
Yes, Rangers, you're not sitting on a ton of them anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So it's nice when they do something like this to give you a little bit more versatility in what
Especially
you're going to
when
do for the day.
It's flavored into the class, too. It's not just straight up like, I'm invisible.
Yeah.
You flavor it with your rangery prowess. Now, Conjure Volley at level 17 is also always prepared. These always prepared spells, you notice, are becoming more and more common, as well as the so many times based on proficiency bonus. And they're just trying to simplify everything and make sure the flavor is part of the class. So if you're a ranger, don't worry. you're going to have these barrages and volleys just set up for you. You
Yeah,
don't got to take them.
And it's worth noting that Conjure Barrage and Conjure Volley now work with any melee weapon. So not just, the thrown property ones.
Yep. And the other thing about Conjure Barrage is that it's 5d8 now instead of 3d8.
Yeah, so it got a buff.
That's a big buff. Almost double. The subclasses we're looking at here are the Beastmaster, the Fey Wanderer, the Hunter, and the Gloomstalker. Ooh, Gloomstalker making its way into a player's handbook.
Yay.
Neat. Now, the sneakiest of sneaky boys, the Roge.
Yeah, I love this class. It's such a good class. Their sneak attack rules are going back to 2014 again. So sneak attacks are going back to the way they were. They are getting weapon mastery too because, they're holding a weapon.
Whoa! Who could have seen this coming?
Yeah.
Now, probably the biggest thing for Rogue specifically in this playtest, we're looking at Cunning Strike, which is a new thing. Basically, think of the fighter subclass Battlemaster and those maneuvers that they get. Essentially, you do like your sneak attack, and you can remove a dice. You could choose to do one less d6 of damage and instead apply a effect. And all of these listed here are 1d6 removed, and they include disarm, poison, trip, and withdraw. Any of these you want to dive into a little bit, Richard?
Yeah, this is actually the biggest thing for me in this UA, just like you had your paladin stuff. This was like the huge one for me that I was so hyped for because it is such a unique ability and it adds so much extra flavor to the rogue. This whole being able to decide not to do max damage and instead have something else happen on your turn. And like you said, it's kind of like a little tiny battle master thing. So it's worth noting that this roll is, or this maneuver that you do is done before you roll. So I'm doing my sneak attack here and I'm going to roll 3 dice. I'm going to take away one of those 3. So now I'm only going to roll 2 and instead I'm going to attempt to disarm you. And then you have to make a dex saving throw. And if you don't, it forces you to drop an item that you're holding, which is really, really cool. Poison is you can add a toxin to your strike, and they have to make a constitution saving throw. And on a failed save, they have the poison condition for 1 minute. At the end of each of its turn, the poison target can repeat the save and try and get it off. But it's really, really cool that you can do this. Now you do have to have a poisoner's kit on you, which is worth noting. But I mean, you're a rogue, you're going to have it on you. Trip is the next one. So if your target is large or smaller, it has to succeed on a dex saving throw or become prone, which is so cool. Being able to just forego one of your d6s to trip them. And then you have withdraw, which is after your attack, you can move up to half your speed without provoking the attack of opportunity.
Wonderful.
So this means I can dip in, sneak attack somebody, go stab with 2d6, take that third one. I don't care about that extra 6 possible damage. And now weave back out of combat, which is really, really cool. So those are the main base ones. The thing that I find most interesting about this in the UA is that they talk about Cunning Strike. It's a 5th level ability, and they list all these things. And they could have just simply said, this is what it is. You subtract one of your d6s, and then that's it. But what they did in here was they listed each one of these things almost like a spell with a cost associated next to it. And they all say cost 1d6. What my conspiracy tinfoil hat makes me think is that we're going to get more of these. And I think they probably are play testing them right now to see how powerful or underpowered they are. Because I can see them having an additional ability that costs more than 1d6. So these are all 1d6 abilities. What if there's one that's 2d6 that does something even crazier? Or what if you just do a sneak attack and you ditch all of your sneak attack dice for one major effect that's different from one of these 4 effects? Now, I might be overthinking this, but when I look at that, that's what I see, which is they have a 1d6 cost now. What about a 2d6 cost one? What about a 3d6 cost ability? And it might not be. And even if it isn't, this is still a really cool ability, and it adds so much flavor to the sneak attack that I wish I had it for the entire campaign that we just did with Garrett.
There's also another level to that. Maybe they're all 1d6 for now, and they're going to do the testing and see how they are. And if one turns out to be a little more powerful, maybe they'll increase its
They can adjust
cost.
the cost. Yeah, yeah.
But I do like your idea that maybe
I hope
there's
they
some
add
more,
something
like,
more.
abilities in there.
I want a super ability that costs like 3 dice.
I'm just thinking, like, as you level up and you start getting more dice for your sneak attack, why would you not do these every turn, you know?
Exactly, and that's why I think maybe you're going to get more that cost more. Because why would you not use these abilities? Like the trip is so cool. Withdraw, I can see using all the time. This one makes me super excited to play a rogue again, which I wasn't planning on playing a rogue anytime soon because I did that for a number of years, and it was like, okay, I've moved on from rogue now. But this is the kind of ability that this is what I love to see in these UAs, is something that makes you look at a class that you've already played many times or played to a certain point and want to do them again. This is one of those abilities for me. This one is super great idea, and I love it, and I want to see it actually stick around, which I have no doubt that it's going anywhere. I just want to see it expanded on.
Now, if you do dig into the subclasses a little bit, there are some that do additional d6. So, for example, if we look at
the higher level
Swashbuckler,
swashbucklers, yeah,
2d6 right there. So, do you think it'll just be something where it's subclass specific that really dives into you can use the extra d6? Because if so, that's good groundwork for later on.
Yeah, I hope it's not subclass specific. I hope they add some more in that are not high level subclass stuff. But I mean, it might stick that way.
Yeah, I mean, it not even necessarily high level. Like, we're gonna have, out the jump here. We're gonna, in this handbook, we're looking at Arcane Trickster, Assassin, Swashbuckler, my favorite, and Thief, which, man, we're going to have to do something where we jump into some of these subclasses a little bit more, because Thief alone has some really cool changes in this UA. But, maybe it's, as like a 6th, 7th, 8th level ability, you can start adding in some more multiple D6 stuff, and it doesn't always have to be high level. I guess it just depends on what the ability is. Either way, that's cool groundwork to build up upon for any subclasses going forward.
Yeah.
Now, we really did just gloss over all of these, really just hitting like key bullet points for everything. Is there anything specific you wanted to mention now before we, not only in the episode and the next week, I think we're going to be talking about an update on our home game for Strahd while we read, really in depth into Monk, and then bring Garrett back for that Monk deep dive. Is there anything else you want to touch on now before we move on?
No, I think that overall, this was a pretty decent UA. There were a couple of things like, that I talked about in the middle that I am sad to see go, like specific things with Bard and everything like that. But overall, it was a lot of expected changes when it comes to things like the Druid stat blocks and everything like that. So generally speaking, not a bad UA, and a lot of changes that were definitely necessary. The Monk one is super exciting, so I am happy to dive into that one. I do have some opinions on that, of course. I don't like everything that they did with the Monk, but I do like what's coming, and I can't wait to get Garrett on the call so we can hear from him on some of that stuff there. But yeah, overall, good little UA.
Yeah, and I think Monk's biggest thing, they're just really trying to like increase that power curve to bring it in line with the other, martial fighters and stuff. So I'm stoked about it. Here, I really, we touched overall on the classes and really skipped over a lot of the subclass stuff. There's some really good meat on them bones for the subclasses. And once again, I highly recommend everyone look up these UAs and, glide through the subclasses a little bit, create your own opinions, and then get ready for the inevitable survey. Woo! That'll come out, and I'm sure it'll be 900 pages long and take 6 days to finish. But, it's important. It's good information, and this is how they're going to build the book, is based on our responses to this stuff. And, probably not super far down the line. Maybe we'll touch on this, player's handbook test again. Maybe we'll dive into these, some of our favorite subclasses here. I would like to do an episode on that, maybe after the Monk, we come back and we do an episode and we just pick our like a favorite couple subclasses for each classes, and stuff like that. Maybe just our favorite subclasses throughout this test in general, and just
which is good.
Dive into those a little bit.
Yeah, there are some big changes to some of these, so it would be a good idea to do a deep dive into.
So hey, keep an eye and ear out for that. We'll probably dive into these a little bit more. But until next time, I've been Tyler,
and I've been Richard,
and we've been True Strike. Hey adventurers, thanks again for joining us today. Please be sure to give us a follow on your favorite podcasting platforms and YouTube. If there's any questions you'd like to write into the show, you can hit us up on Twitter or Instagram. New episodes release every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. Thank you for listening to True Strike.